Supermarkets promise the government food prices have peaked. So when will they fall and how much will be shaved off your food bill?
We want to make sure that the prices are kept low. We've had assurances from the retailers that they will be coming down.
Meanwhile, the Chancellor refuses to say if our living standards will improve by the end of the year as the economy flatlines. Also this lunchtime. More rail strikes, more disruption as the unions deny targeting big national events, including Eurovision. The YouTuber who admitted faking his own plane crash for online clicks who could face decades in jail.
I have no idea where I am.
I am exhausted. I'm so thirsty. I'm in pain, man. I'm hurting.
And Liverpool gears up for the biggest night in music as Eurovision fans get ready to party.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good afternoon. We've seen our pounds and pennies go less further over the last few years as surging inflation and surging food prices have meant everyday essentials like milk, bread and pasta have cost much more. And following yet another increase in interest rates yesterday when stubbornly high food prices were blamed for high inflation, supermarket bosses have told ministers that prices have peaked and will start falling significantly in the coming months. The big questions, though, for many are when and by how much. Our political correspondent Shihab Khan now on the cost of living crisis.
We've all felt the squeeze, seeing our favourite products on supermarket shelves get more and more expensive. The cost of living crisis has impacted all of us, and here at this London High Street, people are worried about their shopping bills.
I'm a pensioner, and usually my weekly shop in Sainsbury's comes to about £45. This morning it was 67.
Very hard. It's hard for everybody. Keeps going up. But our money doesn't cover what the cost of living's going up.
We heard like Aldi's like one of the cheaper shopping places to go to, but even that's gone up now. So yeah, I mean, right now it's just like ridiculous. You can't really, even get tomatoes for like £1 like you used to now.
But there could potentially now be some respite, as today ministers said they'd been reassured by supermarket bosses that prices would fall within 6 to 9 months.
We want to make sure that the prices are kept low. We've had assurances from the retailers that they will be coming down, and that of course is good news with our pledge to halve inflation throughout this year.
Prices have been soaring since last year. White bread has gone up from £1.07 to £1.38. Hard cheese from £6.92 per kilo to £9.98. Sugar has increased 42% from 73p a kilo to £1.04. And olive oil has gone up from £3.87 to £5.78. Those prices have shot up for a number of reasons. The war in Ukraine and rising energy prices has played a part, as has weather conditions outside the UK, which impacts how much it costs to import in food. A committee of MPs has said it will now investigate the fairness of food prices and supply, as there have been questions asked about supermarkets making big profits.
Well, so far we've only seen a few token price decreases on bread and milk. That's really not good enough. When prices are coming down in the wholesale market, supermarkets need to reflect that for their customers as soon as possible. That's by lowering prices, but also getting budget ranges into all of their smaller shops and doing more promotions on healthy, nutritious food that people really need at the moment.
With food price inflation in the UK at a 46-year high, Labour say the government needs to do more to help.
The economy is flatlining. The government is presiding over managed decline, and meanwhile families are really struggling with energy costs, food costs, rent costs, mortgage costs, and none of that sees signs of abating. We need a serious plan to get growth back into our economy, to get the economy moving again, to bring inflation down and to improve wages and living standards.
The hope that prices fall in the near future will reassure many, but what happens in the months to come will be a pressing concern for most.
Well, Shihab, politically, how important is it for the government that these prices do come down?
You heard in my report there from the Minister, who said that this was part of the government's main priorities, halving inflation by the end of the year. And this is a huge part of it, because ultimately people's food bills is what is often used as the determining factor on an individual level to determine how inflation is impacting everyone. Now, the big thing for the government here is there isn't a huge amount of control over this. In France, the French government decided to strike a deal with retailers to cap prices, and we understand that's not something that Downing Street is considering at this moment in time, but it's an indication of how much of an impact this has all had across the continent. After those local election results, which weren't particularly good for the government, cost of living polled as being one of the big issues on the doorstep. It was something that people were talking about. So getting that down will be incredibly important, and it will ultimately be one of the determining factors when deciding how the government has done in managing the economy during this difficult period. Supermarket bosses have given those key reassurances that we should see this happen within 6 to 9 months, but there are loads of factors that can impact that, whether or not there are any extenuating factors in the global economy, for example. So the Number 10 and the government will be keeping an eye on it moving forward, but ultimately it is a wait and see to see whether or not this happens.
All right, Shihab in Westminster, thank you. And the squeeze on consumers, the weather and poorer retail sales led to the economy shrinking in March. It was 0.3% smaller, public sector strikes having an impact too. Overall, between January and March, it grew by 0.1%. Well, let's go live now to our economics editor, Joel Hills, who is in Niigata in Japan, where the Chancellor is attending a G7 meeting. Joel, is it fair to say growth is weak?
Yes, it is, but clearly let's remember where we were just a few months ago when the consensus was the UK was heading for a very long, slightly shallow recession. So clearly it's encouraging that the economy is proving more resilient than was expected. Growing over the last first 3 months of this year. But growth of 0.1% is nothing to shout about. It does look still currently that the economy is stuck in a very low gear, and inflation obviously is still painfully high. The key question people at home will be asking, though, is when will I start finally feeling better off again? You'll recall that the Chancellor has pledged to cut inflation in half, the headline rate, by the end of this year. Earlier, I asked him if he could also pledge that living standards would be rising by the end of this year too.
Those things are subject to lots of factors that are not under the direct control of the government. But what is more under our control is what we call fiscal and monetary policies, the direct policies that we spend.
Sorry, but on this
those ones
on that narrow question, will living standards be rising by the end of the year, do you think?
I hope they will, but the biggest thing that I can do is to control inflation, because that has a direct impact on eroding living standards.
The Chancellor there unable to commit to raising living standards. If he wants to do that, of course, somehow we've got to find a way of raising the level of economic growth. The UK is suffering from some of the lowest growth of the G7 countries that are represented here in Niigata, although the Chancellor is absolutely insistent that the position the UK faces is no different to the other finance ministers from Canada, United States, France, Italy, Germany, who will be sharing a podium with him today and for the rest of tomorrow. He's clear they are suffering from high inflation too. The outlook, though, is uncertain. It's clearly encouraging that energy prices have fallen so sharply that, as Shihab was saying there, it looks like food prices may be peaking. Also today, business investment starting to pick up again. That's a really good sign, but we still haven't seen the full force, the full impact of the interest rate rises that we've seen. It is possible, I'm not saying it's likely, but it's definitely plausible that come the next general election, people will not be feeling materially better off than they are today, and governments that struggle to raise living standards, of course, tend to run into problems.
OK, Joel in Niigata in Japan, thank you. And as we've heard, strikes have dragged down economic growth as well as disrupting the lives of people right across the country. Today, a fresh wave of industrial action began on the railways. Members of the train drivers' union ASLEF are walking out at 16 companies, with some running no services at all. These include TransPennine Express, Northern, Avanti, West Coast, East Midlands Railway, Thameslink and Southern. Well, Ben Chapman is at Liverpool Lime Street station, where disruption has hit fans attempting to make their way to Liverpool for Eurovision. And Ben, take us through why these strikes are happening and the kind of impact that they're having.
Well, with tens of thousands of people expected to come to Liverpool over the next couple of days, you'd expect its busiest train station to be bustling with people. Instead, despite all the Eurovision branding, the platforms are empty. Virtually every train in and out of this station today is cancelled. Now, the government has accused the train drivers' union, ASLEF, of deliberately targeting this weekend to cause disruption to the Eurovision Song Contest. The union categorically denies that. But whatever the politics, it has caused real headaches and in some cases a lot of extra expense for people trying to get here from places like London and Birmingham and Scotland, whether they've got tickets for the final tomorrow night or just coming to soak up the atmosphere. We've been speaking to one young woman who was forced to get an overnight coach from London to Liverpool last night just to be able to be here.
It's been a huge stress because being in Liverpool for this weekend has been a real bucket list item of mine for a very, very long time. And yeah, for a long while the idea that it might not happen really did get me down for a few days. And it was a lot of stress, and I've had my parents roped into helping out, so it's been a bit of a stress on them as well.
And Ben, where are we on any resolution to this dispute then?
Well, at the moment, the train drivers' union, ASLEF, and the government aren't even talking to each other. The government wants changes to working practices in exchange for pay rises. It's offered 4%, which it says is fair and reasonable, but the union's leadership has rejected that.
Can you tell me what else we can do? Would you be talking to me this morning if we weren't on strike? Would you be talking about the needs of my members today if we weren't doing what we're doing at this moment in time? We're in a point in time where we have no choice but other to articulate the voice of our members because of the actions of people who employ us.
More misery for train passengers tomorrow. In a separate dispute, members of the RMT union are walking out across 14 train companies. More disruption for passengers, whether they're coming here or going somewhere else.
All right, Ben, at Liverpool Lime Street, thank you. And there's a full list of which services are affected by strikes and on which days on our website. Head over to itv.com/news. Still to come. One more sleep till Eurovision as Liverpool gets ready to party. While the UK's hopes rest on May Muller, who tells us it still doesn't feel real. First, a YouTuber in the US who filmed himself parachuting off his plane moments before it crashed is now facing a possible 20 years behind bars. The clip Trevor Jacob posted of what he claimed was an accident has had millions of views online, but he's now admitted the crash was a setup as part of a sponsorship deal. Andrew Misra takes up the story.
A death-defying dive to safety. Or so it seems. Trevor Jacob made it look like his plane lost power over the Californian mountains, leaving it to plunge to get his YouTube views to soar. The video's had 3 million hits since it was posted 18 months ago, but some were skeptical from the outset. The 29-year-old seen wearing a parachute at the start of the footage.
Holy I'm over the mountains and I get out and exit out.
And after the plane crashes, while he lands safely.
Ow. Oh my gosh, dude. I have no idea where I am.
Jacob pretends to be lost.
45 minutes now. Down the riverbed.
Only to return off camera later to clean up the crash site.
Trying to keep my spirits high.
And he's now agreed to plead guilty to obstructing a federal investigation. By doing so, he could face up to 20 years in prison. Trevor Jacobs, an American extreme sports athlete, known for sharing his adventures online.
I'm just floating and I'm like 50 feet in the air. And I'm going to miss the airbag.
He's had millions of views before.
Still alive.
This latest sponsored stunt, though, has lost him his pilot's licence and thrown his future into jeopardy. Andrew Meshra, ITV News.
A disqualified driver has been jailed after leading police on a 145-mile-per-hour car chase through North Yorkshire. Just minutes earlier, Jason Ryder had walked out of court after being banned from driving for a separate incident. He'll serve 10 months in jail. The Archbishop of Canterbury has been convicted of speeding just days after the King's coronation. Justin Welby was ordered to pay more than £500 after exceeding a 20-mile-per-hour limit in South London last October. And the boss of Royal Mail has resigned just weeks after agreeing a deal which brought to an end a year of postal strikes. Simon Thompson was in the role for just 2 years and will step down by the end of this year. To Eurovision now and to Liverpool, where the eyes of the world will be watching the grand final of the contest tomorrow night. The UK is, of course, hosting on behalf of last year's winners, Ukraine, who can't hold the event because of Russia's invasion. Millions are expected to tune in, with thousands more already in Liverpool for the main event. Our entertainment reporter, Rishi Davda, has been getting a sense of the excitement among the fans.
Nothing says Liverpool quite like the Beatles statue, and when the city was chosen to host the Eurovision Song Contest in 2023, many thought it was the perfect fit, and as someone who has spent pretty much the whole week here, it feels very much that way. Right now we're inside the fan village, which last night was completely packed for the second semi-final. Thousands of fans from all around the world cheering on the acts. The one thing that has been incredibly notable here is the sense of community. Wherever you're from, whoever you're backing, there is just a genuine sense of joy. What we can expect over the next few hours is the fan park will once again fill up, because today we have 2 dress rehearsals for the grand final, which is tomorrow. That's the big one. 160 million people expected to be watching on TV. Fans are very much at the heart of everything to do with Eurovision, and Liverpool has very much put them at the centre of the song contest. And plenty of fans are coming in through the doorway. It's only opened about 25 minutes ago, because it's just a wonderful place to be in amongst the friendly competition that is Eurovision. I'm joined by Charlie and Nicola, who are first-timers to a Eurovision. Charlie, tell me, why have you come down? It's not too far away from where you live.
It's just 18, 20 miles away from home here. Come down just to experience the atmosphere. You know, it's vibrant, it's buzzing. There's lots of different people here, different languages. It's just really great. It's one of those. When you look at it and you think, you know, what happens here. Look at what it's created. You know, it's the atmosphere that it's created, and it's brought a city together.
Perfect. We'll have a fantastic afternoon, Charlie and Nicola. Just some of the thousands of fans who are enjoying Eurovision here in lively Liverpool.
Rishi Davda reporting there. Well, 26 finalists will be taking to the stage tomorrow night. Among the favourites, Sweden, who see the return of a former winner, Loreen. Up there too are last year's winners, Ukraine. But British hopes will be pinned on May Muller, representing the UK and hoping for Eurovision glory, as Sangeeta Kandola reports.
It was lively, to say the least, in Liverpool last night. Austria got audiences bobbing along to their upbeat Eurovision entry. Can't do that, but Australia did rock on at the semi-finals. Followed on by more countries with their wild, wacky and wonderful performances.
Let's take a deep breath, everyone!
We now know all the countries who've made it through to the grand final. And taking them on, the UK's May Muller.
It won't truly click until I do it in front of the audience,
but I think that I feel like I'm just gonna feed off of that, and it's just gonna make even more sense. But yeah, it's becoming more and more real every minute.
May faces tough competition for the top spot from the likes of Sweden, who are one of the front runners for the trophy, alongside Israel and Finland's energetic entry. But for May, win or lose, it's the Eurovision experience that she'll definitely take away.
I feel like, you know, at the heart of this, I think it is about the people, and I feel like, especially in Liverpool, everyone's just so warm and friendly. Everywhere we've gone, we've just felt so like welcome, and it just feels like, especially this year, with all the amazing women that are participating, it feels there's a nice sense of like support there, and we're all wanting to see each other win, which is really, really nice.
Whatever happens tomorrow night, Liverpool are gearing up with Eurovision excitement as they host on behalf of last year's winners, Ukraine. Meanwhile, President Zelensky, who wanted to address the show via video link, has been told today that he can't, as there's no place for politics in the competition. Screens have been erected across the UK so people can watch collectively, comment on the costumes, compositions and the sometimes political point scoring, all part of the theatre that is Eurovision. Sangeeta Kandola, ITV News.
Oh, good luck, May. Before we go, an update now on a story we brought you yesterday, and the mysterious author behind the so far unpublished book racing up the charts in the United States has been revealed. The publishing house Flatiron has unveiled K-pop stars BTS are in fact the musicians behind it all, and not superstar Taylor Swift, whose fans had speculated that she was the author of the book. Close but not close enough. That is it. Charlene is here with the evening news at 6:30 from everyone on Lunchtime. Bye-bye.